you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, oh, I see myself in your job in 5 years' time. And she rolled her eyes. Gratitude doesn't pay the bills, sorry. So if you want me to do that job, you better pay me for it. I really believe in self-development. It's never a no, it's always a redirection. If you can't get a job straight away out of uni, go and work in retail. Like, it's such a good learning experience. I was running one of the stores on a Sunday. So that just gave me loads of management experience at a really young age and confidence as well to do that.
Today's guest is Amina Folarin, CEO of Oliver UK and Campaign CEO of the Year and Visionary Business Leader of the Year. Amina is one of the most respected voices in the advertising industry, and today she shares her journey from HR all the way to C-suite. In this masterclass of transformation, impact and inclusion, Amina has led teams through change and championed diversity at every level. Amina, thank you so much for joining me on the Strategic Salary Series. It is an honour to have you with me.
Oh, thanks for having me, Lucy, and well done for getting the matching pink memo.
You delivered. It looks great. So, kicking off with initial questions, you're an award-winning CEO. So first of all, congratulations. Your career is outstanding. Did you always have ambitions to be a C-suite? And how did you first break into the industry? Was it intentional?
If I'm honest, I know a lot of people are really intentional about their career and tell you this was what I knew I wanted to do since I was a child. Absolutely not. That was not the case for me. Growing up, I thought I would be a vet. I love animals. My house is like a zoo, much to my husband's disgust. But once I moved into HR, I knew that was a career where I could be impactful. I liked bringing together people, seeing the impact they could have on a business, but also being able to work in inclusion and bringing all of that to the heart of what we do. So joining Oliver 9 years ago, I worked to support the CEO at the time. And although we were about 500 people then, we were a bit like a startup. We had no infrastructure. We were growing massively. And so that really gave me an opportunity to learn how to build a business from the ground up. I learned from Sharon. And so I think working alongside a really good leader, she was really supportive and she was a great leader to our business. So you know what? She asked me, we had a joke about this recently. She said, like 6 years ago, I did your performance review and I asked you what your there's that question. What would you want to, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, I see myself in your job in 5 years' time. And she rolled her eyes. And I remember her feeding back that I was, what did she call me? An overly ambitious millennial. But however, I think at the time, because, she's technically a boomer-ish, maybe not quite old enough to be a boomer. So there was always this stereotype that millennials were like too big for their boots, were really ambitious, wanted all this stuff. And I remember saying to her, but do I want anything from my career and my work environment that you didn't want? Really? You keep saying that millennials are ambitious, but you had to have a level of ambition to also be a CEO. And she agreed. So actually, we put that in my performance review. We never really talked about it much after that. I just kind of thought, well, if I want to be a CEO, I need to understand my role, but really understand her role and help her be impactful in her job. So that's what I spent my time doing. And really, for me, whilst I see the value in lots of people strategies, I think where HR sometimes goes wrong is they can't talk to the business about this is what we did and this is where it had a knock-on impact. I think HR has probably changed a lot as well since I've moved into my CEO role, but data was really important. And also blowing my own whistle of these are the things that my team have done. Because I think also we can sometimes be a bit self-depreciating and not say to the business, we've done this and this is the impact. So by doing those things, I think I put myself in a strong position when a vacancy came about. I threw my name in the hat. I always think, run towards something, don't run away from it. If I didn't get the job, it was fine because you know what? I would have had the interview and then learned what my gaps were and I would have gone again. I really believe in self-development. It's never a no, it's always a redirection. Fortunate for me on this occasion, it was a yes. That's how I got to where I am. So I don't think, did 10-year-old me dream of running a multi-million-pound marketing agency? Not in a million years. I don't even think I knew what a CEO was back then. It wasn't until I was in this industry that, my mum was a midwife and she went into public health. So the people that I was around were generally in healthcare. I didn't get into the NHS jobs graduate scheme. Fortunately, it was incredibly boring when I went to the interviews. I thought this is not for me.
Mm.
Um, but I hadn't been exposed to the kind of business world until I started working at Oliver, really, from because I was working side by side with the CEO.
So, question for you. When you joked with Sharon and you said, I want your job, was that said in jest, or was there a feeling that actually, no, I do want your job and I'm going to work towards that?
Oh yeah, I wasn't joking. I was
Oh,
deadly
okay.
serious. I haven't got a plan of how I was going to do it. Um,
Okay.
but I knew that actually the things that I'd seen, I thought actually I'm a good leader. I've got influence. People listen to me. Um, Clients, we're a big client-led business. I can build
Yeah.
relationships. That's what you need for clients. I used to work in retail, and I say to anyone, starting if you can't get a job straight away out of uni, go and work in retail. Like, it's such a good learning experience because, you're dealing with customers, you're dealing with happy customers, unhappy customers, you're dealing with, like, huge teams. You can progress really quickly. So, by the time I was at like coming to the end of my year at uni, like my university time, I was running one of the stores on a Sunday. So that just gave me loads of management experience at a really young age and confidence as well to do that. So I wasn't joking when I said it. I was deadly serious. Like, this is the trajectory. Whether or not I believed I could do it in 5 years, probably
Okay.
didn't think that at that time. I just thought it was the kind of job I'd have by the time I was 50, but I was doing it
Okay.
before I was 40. So it happened a lot sooner than I was expecting, which is fine.
Yeah.
But I did also seek out opportunities to make sure that the gaps that I did have, because I worked in HR, I was starting to fill them.
That's really interesting. I always, my first job was in Iceland. So I was on the till in Iceland, and it was the trenches, but it taught me so much.
It
People
does.
management, no, honestly, communication skills, how to deal with really tricky customers, how to deal with tricky employees. And I don't often reference that because you think it's such a long time ago, it's not relevant. But actually, I probably learned some really, they might seem basics, but some basic leadership skills in that role that I've carried through to my career now. So, yeah, that's really good advice. Get a job in retail. If you're not secure in the job that you want in your current profession, then at least do something that can build
Yeah.
transferable skills.
Whilst if you have to work whilst you're at uni, retail is really great. Or even if you're struggling to get that first grad role,
Mm,
and typically, I don't know if it's still, this is going back a couple of years, so I don't know if it's still the case. But when I worked at All Saints, was my last job. They did tend to hire head office roles from people that knew their company. That was the first place that they looked at. Who understands our brand, what our customers want. They would look to the shop
mm.
floor. So I think that also it can open other doors. I'm not saying it works for everyone. I never knock my time in retail. I always encourage grads, if you can't get a job in an office job, it's okay. Go and work in retail for the meantime. You will learn a lot doing it.
Agreed. Thank you for sharing. So, my next question is about LinkedIn. I'm a major fan of LinkedIn, but sometimes the titles don't give us the person behind, for example, CEO.
Yeah.
So, what I would love to know is there something you can share with us that we can't gather from your LinkedIn or your CV? Who is the Amina behind the CEO title?
Um, Behind the CEO, so I mentioned that I'm an avid animal lover. So
Yeah.
I'm cat mom to Simba and Virgil, and my dog Roxy that comes everywhere with me. I love to travel, but also love to rest. I was
Okay.
talking at a on a panel recently, and the women were asking me what's the one piece of advice you would give us, and I was like, rest. People love to burn themselves out, and I know it's not done deliberately, but there's
Yeah.
this culture of this fear of taking time out for yourself, where I think for me, particularly in 2020, that's something that I did do and I've carried on throughout the rest of my career. You can't be at your A game if you're working constantly. If you burn your brain out, if you don't give your brain time and capacity to think creatively, to problem solve, to look ahead. So I think, I love a rest. I like taking myself.
Fair
I
enough.
know, I know, and that can seem, I work really hard. I have a 9 to 5 working as a CEO of Oliver. Also, the industry, it has a whole 5 to 9 networking, client dinners, award
Yeah.
ceremonies. It's non-stop. So if you don't put yourself first, who will do that? You have to get good at saying no to some things, but you also have to get good at, take that annual leave. It's in your contract for a reason. Take it.
Yeah.
I always say to people that annual leave is not a bonus. It's part of the package that you've signed up for. Take it
Mm.
and use it to rest. You don't always need to leave the country. Even just having a day off to veg on the sofa, I sometimes find quite healing.
So how do you rest? How does Amina shut off and rest from being a CEO?
Walk my dog. I've mentioned Roxy. I'll talk about her quite a lot because she's really cute. I'll send you some photos. Just taking the dog for a walk, trying to quiet my brain. I'm not, I know lots of people have these kind of really strict routines that they stick to and can point to, I meditate every day, I do yoga. That is not me. I also have
Okay.
ADHD. So as much as I start these things, I probably don't continue them. But I try to have some level of consistency. I've got a personal trainer, so I work out 3 days a week for no other reason than if I didn't, I'm too lazy to motivate myself to go to the gym. But I recognize the health benefits in having that routine and exercising regularly. I mentioned walking my dog.
Yeah.
Um, I travel to the Caribbean. For me, actually taking myself out of the UK, particularly in this kind of heightened climate where people feel unwanted. I go also to spaces where I am wanted and don't need to explain myself. And for me, that's the Caribbean. I try and travel to places where people look like me and where I can access hair care products. These things seem really basic, but actually, not having to be someone else on holiday is really
Yeah.
important.
That's a really valid point. So, and you said it sounds basic, but I've always considered that someone said to me the other day, would you just retreat to the mountains or would you go and just live in the countryside where it's really green? And and I know it sounds silly, but the first thing that came to mind is I don't know how I'm going to get my hair done unless I would have to go
Yeah,
back
yeah,
somewhere to get my hair done. And I can look after my own hair, but there are just certain products and access to things that just don't exist in the mountains or in the
yeah,
countryside. So yeah, it's all about feeling comfortable in your space. So I don't think we shine a light on that enough.
yeah. No, I agree. So for me, who is Amina? I'm highly motivated about making a difference. I want my legacy to be that I brought people along the journey with me.
Hmm.
So whether that's friends, family, people that I meet, I mentor so many young women. Up until recently, I was also a trustee for two charities. ActionAid was one, and the Haberdasher School. But I just didn't really have the commitment. They're almost like full time jobs on top of a full time job, so it wasn't right for me to continue because they do need people that can be committed. But I'm really
Yeah.
committed to my mentoring programs. I work with MIFA, is one of them. Women's Association. You name it. If someone reaches out to me and says, "Can I have a call?" I normally always say, "All right, we've got an hour. What do you need?" And I think that's really important. I want to be accessible in a way that provide access for people. To our point earlier around, I didn't know that a CEO role existed, and definitely I wouldn't have thought that a CEO could look like me. I want to make sure that people know that we're out there and that we can try and help where we can.
Thank you for sharing. So, moving on to your transition from HR. So, you mentioned you started as HR and then you went into a leadership role to become a CEO. Now, what unique perspectives can you share on the way you've had to advocate for yourself or the way you discuss pay, promotions, and how organizations value talent?
Mm. So in terms of negotiating my own package, I
Mm.
think, one thing that sometimes happens, particularly when you're given opportunities maybe above your station, sometimes, is that then people expect you to be so grateful for the experience, so you're just going to do it for no more money. I'm like, gratitude doesn't pay the bills. Sorry.
Yeah.
So if you want me to do that job, you better pay me for it. So I think I've always learned to advocate for myself and others as well.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be. I know there's loads of stuff on social media about like HR's not your friend, they're there for the company. I say in some cases that is the case, but I tried to build a HR team where we were as impartial as possible. Like the manager isn't always right, but neither is the employee, and our role was to try and bring the two together and form resolutions. So back to your question, but you have to really value what your skills are and know what you bring to that organization. So going back to that self-promotion, a lot of people
Mm.
shy away from it. But if they don't know your results, when it comes to negotiation time, what are you going to lean back? What are you going to fall back on? So keeping records of things that you've delivered, positive pieces of feedback. So when it gets to a salary discussion, because sometimes what happens, particularly in performance reviews, is people actually only remember the last 3 months, really.
Yeah.
Going back a year, no one can really remember. Like, I can't remember what I was up to in January this year. But actually, if you keep a bit of a record, a log of your achievements, you can pull some of those up and it becomes much more powerful. Um, and even stepping into the CEO role, they didn't want to give me any more money for it. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do the job. I've got a job that I like doing and I'm pretty good at it. So choice is yours, really. And actually it was deliberate because I thought, well, if I'm going to be in front of clients having to negotiate client contracts and I can't even negotiate my own, what does that say about me?
True.
Remember the founder saying, so he's such a pain in the ass of I was like, well, the choice is yours, guys. I can carry on in my job that I'm really happy in, or I can take this new opportunity, but you need to pay me for it.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's kind of the reason why I created this podcast. It is a taboo. Speaking
Mm.
about money is a taboo. Speaking about salary, even when people ask me, so like, what's the point of this podcast? I want women to be able to advocate for themselves in the workplace. But then when I end with and double their salary, they're a bit like, oh, that's a bit brash. Well, not really.
Mm,
I want people to be able to double their salaries and it's achievable. But
mm,
I just think the UK specifically, they're very polite around salaries and we shouldn't ask them all. Like you mentioned, we should be grateful. But yeah, you should absolutely be asking for what you're
yeah,
worth.
I think it's getting really different. Oh, with my CEO hat on, I also know at the moment in the macroeconomic climate, it's quite difficult. A lot of
Yeah.
companies haven't been able to award pay increases at the levels they had previously. Things like the NI increase really impacted business. Money that they
Hmm.
would have previously spent on pay reviews, I know that a lot of them have had to therefore redivert that to just paying the NI bill. So it's whilst these conversations are absolutely relevant and the right ones to have, also I would not enough employees that I come across in my experience in my team, not just in my team, just in the organization or people that I speak to, read about what's happening in the economy, understand what's impacting business so that you do things at the right time. People also have to start thinking about their package as a whole. Like, what else can this company offer me, as well as, I want more money. I think more money is important, but it's not always a be all and end all. I've worked places where I've earned really well and actually the culture was so bad for my health that, you know, the sacrifice wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Oliver's not like that, but, you know, I'm sure other people will have been through that where they're earning a good salary.
Mm,
Is it the right place for them?
you're right. I don't think people look at the holistic package enough. And I can understand, we've all been told no, it doesn't feel good to be rejected for a promotion or a salary increase. But something you said there that is not highlighted enough is read. Knowing what's happening in the country that you operate, even global economics, it
Mm,
helps to contextualize what's going on. Even I was having a chat with someone last week about inflation and the impact on salary erosion and looking at where inflation is now. What was your salary increase? If you stay on the same salary for 5 years, you're not actually staying on the same salary. Your salary is
yeah.
eroding. And just reading more. Like,
Mm.
it's so important and people don't do it. If you had to suggest, okay, so like top two sources that you could recommend for people, or top three sources just to read and gather information, what would you suggest? But where should people start if they're not currently reading?
If they're not currently reading, something like The Economist is really
Hmm.
helpful. Um, Newspapers, depending on which way you lean, the Times, the Guardian. Don't think you're going to get anything that useful out of Mail Online, but I would say the Times and the Guardian will give you a good overview. The Financial Times, but we're in an AI era now. Also, if you don't want to access any of those, pay for Perplexity AI and build a report that gives you a weekly download of what's happening in the markets. I think Perplexity is like 15 quid a month, something like that, or they do have a free version. Ask,
Hmm.
build it. learn how to build a report. I've taught myself how to do it with a little help from some friends at work, but learn how to build a report that will email you what's happening in the world once a week or once every fortnight, whenever you want to read it.
I love that advice. Yeah, I don't think people utilize AI as much, but yeah, just to summarize, read more, read more, be aware of the economy and how it impacts your business's performance and salary. So thank you for sharing. Now, I want to move on to, you've mentioned how you've negotiated your work, how you moved into the CEO position, but has there been a time when it just didn't go to plan, where a salary negotiation went left? And what happened and what did you learn from that?
Hmm. That's a bit. I've worked at Oliver for such a long time now that most of my experiences are there. So I
Okay.
don't have a recent example. Um, I think when I came, we talked about kind of coming out of uni, and I worked at All Saints, and then I got a role. So when I worked at All Saints in on the shop floor, didn't
Hmm.
actually know that I wanted to work in HR at the time. Wasn't really sure what I wanted to, but I got an opportunity to go into head office and work in the customer services department. So
Okay.
being a bit naive, being a fresh grad, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to get paid so much money now." I was not. I think I was paid like £13,500 a year, and that was kind of like minimum wage at the time. Um, and I was like, "Is this all you guys are paying me? Because I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to like live my life like this." And they were like, "No, that's the starting salary, etc., etc." Obviously, we had other benefits like uniform and things like that that did help because you didn't have to spend money on
Okay.
clothes. And then we got 50% discount. But like we're talking about with some of the other cost of living pressures and even just living rent in London now is really
Yeah.
expensive. It was expensive then. Things haven't changed. It's just all relative to what's happening in the market. So I think that was a bit of a surprise to me. I had to have two jobs. So I worked 9 to 5 in an office and then I had a
Mhm.
weekend job to make things work. I worked in a bar for a good 2 years just so
Mm,
that I had money to live. I mean, I didn't have that much time to do stuff because I was working in a pub, but that's how I
yeah.
got by.
So would you say that and I know it's a bit different because you came straight out of uni, but would you say you've always negotiated your salary in every position you've been offered?
Have I always negotiated it? I'd say so. I always ask. Oh, I'm an asker. The worst someone can say is no, and then you can make your
Yeah.
decision. If you don't ask, you don't get, right? So even
Yep.
when I go to shops, like, oh, you got any discount? My husband's always like cringing because he doesn't ask for anything. Even when we go to restaurants, he's like, do not complain, do not send it back. I'm like, I am. If I don't like, I'm paying for it. If I don't like it, it's going back. If it's not right, it's going back. So I think if you don't ask, you don't get. So generally, yes. And I think when you're moving from job to job, particularly for women as well, if you start off by being behind, it's really hard to then catch up. So when
Yeah.
you're recruiting, recruiters will always ask you, well, what's your current salary? Flip it on them and ask them, well, what is the role paying? And
Hmm.
that's what I expect to be paid. I know a lot of companies are getting better at actually not asking people their current salary, and they have their this is what the role's paying. It's something that we implemented at Oliver because I wanted to help reduce the gender pay gap. I think last year we actually still had one of the lowest gender pay gaps in the industry, and that's something
Wow.
that I want to continue. But women, you do have to get used to advocating for yourself. It's not always easy, and sometimes people don't like it, they don't expect it, but if you don't advocate for yourself, not everyone has a line manager that's going to do it for you. You can't always rely on that your line manager's going to do it because, to be honest, they're trying to do it for themselves.
Yeah. No, you're right. A question for you. I'm just thinking about anybody listening to this who isn't as confident to advocate for themselves. Have you always been like this? Have you always been able to advocate for yourself? And if not, what steps did you take that someone listening to this can be like, okay, I can action that and show up as a more confident negotiator or self belief?
Been asked this question before, and I think it was just a number of things from my childhood. I think sometimes it is inbuilt. I am
Hmm.
part Nigerian, so as I've got older and learned more about, I'm part Yoruba. Like the Yorubas are very audacious, and I think so.
They
I
are.
think some of it is in my DNA. I think some of
Okay.
that is just in my DNA. you know, little things shape you. Going to the market. My mum was a single mum. She was a midwife. She worked really hard. But,
Hmm.
seeing her and my grandma go into the market and negotiating the cost of their goat meat for Christmas,
Yeah.
just those little things, you're like, okay, this, you see, just it becomes part of you. This is who you are. But I think if you're not confident in that, you don't have the Nigerian audacity, there are steps you can take to build that reflex. Everyone listening to this today, next time you go to buy a coffee, ask them if you can have 10% off. They might say no, but you know what? You might get a yes. And when you get that yes, you're like, oh, okay, that's a little confidence boost. Just keep on doing it. How often do you go to those places where people are going back to my time in retail and just say,
Yeah.
oh, how's your day going? Do you finish work soon? I don't know if you thought I was chatting him up, but now I get 10% every time I go because I just ask, like, how is your day? How are you? Look, I'm not an expert in confidence building. I'm sure there are tons of books out there and more
Hmm.
experts in this area than I am, but I would say, like with any skill, I'd say confidence is a skill that you have to keep. You have to keep going. And I'm not perfect. There are definitely times when a lack of confidence has possibly got the better of me, even
Hmm.
transitioning into this role. But my number one piece of advice I always say to everyone, it goes back to being your number one advocate, is be your own number one fan. Like, have your own back. People doubt, they'd let their little niggly voice in the back of their head tell them that it's wrong, but you have to find ways to overcome that. Put that in a box. Be your own number one fan. The decisions that you're making, they're the right decisions for you at that time. And like, really believe that and believe that you're doing the right things for you. And I think sometimes people make decisions and then they second guess them. I've got friends that are like that.
Mm.
I might come to a decision in a week, they're still thinking about it 3 weeks later, by which time they've missed the opportunity. If they believed in themselves, they believed in the power of their decisions to say yes to the things that they're important to them, they wouldn't do that. So I think you've got to find a way to be your own number one fan. And also ask for 10% off your coffee at your next coffee shop.
I don't do so. There's something about me asking for a discount, and my partner does it. He does it, and he'll ask for a discount anywhere, and I just can't. I do find I can advocate for myself, and that's also probably because I'm Nigerian. It's in my
Yeah,
DNA as well. But the discount thing, I'm going to try it today. I have to. Like the
yes.
thought of like, yeah, I'm just going to go. I think it's because the idea of being like, for example, like a Starbucks, a big chain restaurant, you don't think, I mean, you assume they're going to say no, but why not? I'm
Why
going to do
not?
it. So yeah, yeah.
Banks sometimes do it. I mean, even local coffee shops. But are you running any promotions today? You can give me 10% off. Smile at people. Eye contact is another good one. Or just asking them about their day. Rapport building is
Yeah.
really important. You've got to invest in the emotional piggy bank before you withdraw. So if there's a coffee shop that you go to regularly, don't look at your phone when you approach the till. Eye
Mm,
contact, ask them about their day. Maybe that day's not, maybe you won't even have to ask for the discount next time you go because you started to build a rapport with that person and they'll offer it. So I think those kind of things do help.
that's so smart. So yeah, for anyone listening who doesn't have Nigerian blood, just go and ask for 10%. That's the way to build that muscle.
Ask for 10%, ask if they're running any promotions. I'll talk
Yeah.
about Blooming Krispy Kremes need to sponsor me because I was in Birmingham a few weeks ago and I was buying a box of donuts to take to some family members. I was like, 25 quid for a box. I think I said to him, 25 quid for a box of donuts. I said, that's gone up. I said, aren't there any promotions? No discount you can give me. And he said, oh, actually, he said, if you buy that Marvel donut, you get half price. I was like, perfect. So I bought it. So you just have to ask. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised. You'd be surprised what you can get. Not everyone's going to say yes, but you never know.
But that's also important to learn. Not
Yeah,
everyone will say less, and you
yeah,
need to just firm it. So
yeah.
yeah, no, great advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, before I move on to the random round, final question for you.
Yep.
So you were recognized as Campaign's CEO of the Year and Visionary Business Leader of the Year. So
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you.
How much of your career progression and executive opportunity do you think is tied to visibility and perception in market?
Well, I was already CEO before anyone knew who I was, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
So I think for mine, it wasn't. Possibly for
Yeah.
future roles, it will be. I'm not as great at probably good at self-promotion internally, but probably less great at kind of maintaining LinkedIn, et cetera. It's like a whole other job on top of your day job.
Hmm.
So I think to get the role, it wasn't, but I think for future leadership roles, I can see that that would play a much bigger part. Um, but I think what has been important as well is just saying, like, I go to events that I probably ordinarily wouldn't have said yes to. A few
Okay.
weeks ago, someone emailed me, just out of the blue, because you get lots of emails and you ignore most of them because they look like junk. I actually read them just to see if there's anything interesting, and then I delete them. And on this occasion, someone had invited me to a networking, it was like canapes and drinks for other
Okay.
female CEOs. And I was like, oh, thank God I didn't delete that, because I had such a lovely time. And now I've got a whole other network of people that I didn't even know existed previously. So read the junk emails, check that it's not something that you can be a part of, and or seek out networks that you can be a part of. I regularly get asked to speak on panels or dinners, etc. And generally I say yes to them.
Okay.
Again, it's time consuming. Some of it is about my own personal profile, but also some of it is about expanding my network. You never know who you might need and when you might need them. I
Hmm.
There's a statistic that you are 40% more likely to get a job from someone that's in your because of a recommendation by someone that's in your second connections and someone that's in your first connections. So they're equally as important as someone that knows of you rather
Yeah.
than that knows you. So I think that's really important as well.
One follow-up question. So you mentioned being a C-suite, you're extremely busy and you just get emails left, right, and center. You mentioned that you always get, like, everybody gets junk emails, but you're unique in that you open these emails. But for anyone
I
trying
delete a
to,
fair few of them as well.
fair,
Don't
fair.
get me wrong. Before anyone starts spamming me.
But this is what my question was going to be. In your mind, when you're going through your inbox, what screams spam to you? Like, what to you screams spam, and what screams this is a genuine email that you think that you should entertain or open?
It's usually, you know what, it's usually a catchy subject line. So for example, this person, the event that I went to it was called Honourable Women. So I opened it. I
Hmm.
was like, am I an honourable woman, or are they going to introduce me to some? And actually it was both. So I think a good subject, catchy subject for me is something that will get me going, or like the sales ones. Amina, I can help you 10x your revenue. Open it quickly. No, you can't. Delete it. So I think the subject is really important, because it's a thing that will dictate whether or not I open it and send it straight to delete or not.
Thank you for sharing. Now we're going to move on to the random round. Ready?
Yeah, sure.
Quick fire questions. So we will start with, what's your bedtime routine?
Go to bed, scroll on my phone for about 45 minutes, send memes to my friends, and then wind down and go to sleep. That's the
Yeah.
honest routine. That's like me on a bad day.
Okay.
On a good day, put all the animals to their respective beds. A bit of meditation, like calm my brain down and sleep. But how
Okay.
often I do that versus going to Instagram black holes, I'm not sure.
Is that your go-to social media website?
Yeah,
Is Instagram?
I am on TikTok, but I don't use it because I'm afraid of getting addicted to it. So
Okay.
I only interact with it kind of what I need to keep on in touch with what's happening in the world. But I'm old school. I'm an Instagrammer. I'll have it 4 weeks out of date, thanks.
Okay. Fair. What's your go-to hot drink?
Tea, cup of tea,
Okay.
builder's tea, no sugar, milk, no sugar.
Perfect. What's your most used emoji?
The laughing face, because usually I'm saying something, if depending on who I'm talking to, it's probably something incredibly inappropriate or something that I find quite funny.
Okay. Fair. So if you had to deliver a TED talk in an hour, what would that subject be on?
Oh, that's a good question. TED Talk in an hour, what would that subject be on? I think it would be on the power of inclusion in businesses, but not from a here are all the boxes that you need to tick, but really
Hmm.
looking at where that we have a shared, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, we all have a shared human experience. And I think we forget that. We're now categorized in these boxes that we live by. But actually, what if we just found ways to connect as humans? So it would probably be something in that arena.
Thank you for sharing. And then 2 questions. What's one thing that instantly makes you feel better?
My husband.
Oh, that's lovely. Okay. And then the final question, if you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life and only that meal, what would it be?
Oh, this is a tough one because it's like just that, nothing
Yeah,
else.
just that. Just that.
I do like a good curry goat and rice, so I can't cook it as long as it's not too spicy because I'm not very good with spicy food. But yeah, but I
Okay.
could probably curry goat. I'd probably get gout or something from all the red meat, but I'd go curry goat and rice with salad and a bit of salad cream.
Okay. So if you can't cook it, who do you go to for curry goat and rice?
The nearest Caribbean restaurant.
Okay.
Generally,
Okay,
or my
fair.
mum, or like if we have parties, there'll always be someone that cooks it. But if I normally order it in. I probably could cook it. It's just a time thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Finding you've got to put your energy in time where you've got it, and I don't have time to cook lovely Caribbean meals. So I'll go curry goat and rice, bit of mac cheese, salad.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll go for that.
Okay.
Plantain.
Well, okay. Oh, you say plantain. I say plantain.
No,
No,
it's not
no.
plantain.
It's just no, no.
No.
Right. Amina, thank you so much for spending. I think we've been on here for about 40 minutes. Thank you for spending the last 40 minutes with me.
Oh,
It
you're
has been
welcome. Thanks
so,
for having
no,
me.
genuinely, it's been so insightful. I've laughed, I've gathered insights. I'm going to ask for discount at my coffee shop. Genuinely, it has been a really insightful chat and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it too, and it was lovely spending this time with you. If I can help anyone that's listening to this, feel free to link in with me. I can't promise that I'll come back really quickly, but I'll do my best.
Amazing. Thank you.
If this podcast made you think differently or question the way you navigate your strategy or the way you approach a conversation, please do me a favour. Hit like, subscribe, and share. Your support will help others discover this podcast and keep the conversation going.